All right, we are live. It is live. It is official here. We should be on live on. I'm checking with Chris. I believe we are on YouTube, and let's welcome everybody here. So, Jeff Bruno, your outsourced CFO, and I'm here today for our webinar with Eric Lynn, who is an EOS implementer and also runs some tab groups, and Maria, who is also an EOS implementer. Welcome, guys. Please quickly introduce yourselves.
Hi, my name is Eric Lynn. I am the founder of the company Northbound Strategies, where I do two things. I help business owners build peer groups where they can help each other grow and solve issues. And my true love is implementing EOS, where the smile on the faces in the room is what gets me up every morning and gets me doing what I do.
Nice.
Great.
Maria.
And I'm Maria Baseggio, and my business is Sage Insights. I'm also a professional EOS implementer, and so I love working with leadership teams and owners to help them get what they want from their business by getting the most out of their EOS implementation. EOS, by the way, stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System.
Excellent. So while everyone's on, we're on the YouTube channel. There should be a chat on there. Please, if you have any questions, put it in the chat, and we will answer them accordingly. So here we go. So what we're going to talk about today and why I wanted to bring Eric and Maria on, is because the integration for businesses these days, and the integration of using outsourced resources and the tracking of your metrics is more critical than ever. So I want to, before we get into the slides, I want to speak a little bit about this. Our environment has been in drastic shift in the last few months, as everyone knows, and as you know, we constantly discuss. COVID has shaken up things. It's making us move a lot more virtual. A lot of people are at home. I'm obviously outside here. So a lot of things have changed. And in adapting to those things, what a lot of small businesses have needed to do was take a much harder look at, one, their financial strategy, and two, how they're going to stay on top of managing not just financial strategy, but your operational strategy and how that all ties together. And you can stay on top of managing that to get ahead get through disruption and get ahead and back towards growth. So as a brief update, we've had a lot of things to help support the small business space. We've had the government introduce EIDL loans, emergency loans, fund those. They've done the PPP. We've had a lot of our clients successfully get those. That has really helped those businesses to stabilize. However, what we're seeing now is that was a plug, and the economy and things are really still distressed. The unemployment is still very high. And these companies are still struggling majorly to get back to those growth levels. So it's so critical that you look forward in what you're trying to do as a company, and you don't just depend on being reactionary. So what YOCFO and EOS have found, and we work together on several clients, is that proactive, forward-looking strategy and checking it weekly and monthly is just so absolutely critical to businesses these days. So that's what we're going to talk about today, how we help businesses do that, to always look at a projection rather than looking backwards. So we're going to start. I want to give you a heads up that Dana is our admin. She is going to be on here as running our slides. So we'll be referencing her occasionally. And please, we'll stop between some slides for questions and so on for a few seconds to see if you have any. Otherwise, we'll get going. So let me bring up the slides here. Okay, here are the slides. So as we mentioned, here are the three of us. And Dana, if you can go to the next slide, please. So I'm going to begin here some of this to talk about the financial planning. So we always say from the financial world, you always got to track monthly. And that's how our business is built to help support you strategically as a CFO. So one of the main topics, 4 of the main topics that I want to talk about today, which are relevant in our environment, are these 4 right here. Improving cash reserves for downturns, improving working capital for growth, and that means a lot of things, improving efficiency of your direct labor if you're a labor business, and target increased top-line growth. So what goals are achievable in this environment, and what tactics work? So I want to speak a little bit about this. Improving cash reserves. Absolutely critical. A lot of our clients, they were holding 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month of cash reserves. So we're going to show how you want to try to improve your cash reserves so you can get through downturns. Month and a half, 2 months, 3 months of cash reserves as a small business. Critical in this environment, in any economic environment. Secondly, working capital. Now, when I talk about working capital, I'm also talking about credit lines. Banks will never lend you money when you need money. Well, not never, but it's a lot more infrequent. So you got to be ahead of this. You got to say, what do I need 6 months? What do I need a year from now in working capital? And working capital can mean a new line. You might need to go from a $100,000 line to a $500,000 line. How do you position your business to accomplish that? Increase efficiency of your direct labor team. Maybe you're struggling in this environment to improve your top line growth or even reserve money in cash. Well, maybe you can just try to eke out some more efficiency with your team to try to improve that cash. Then there's the top line growth. That's a huge thing. Companies that can't generate revenue or struggle to are dead in the water. I mean, and that we've seen that in COVID. A lot of companies have had to reinvent themselves. They had to pull in other types of revenue. Maybe their industry, like commercial real estate, is disrupted because people are not in offices now. So you have to think outside the box and think about how you can adjust, add revenues in, and get your top line growth back to levels that are sustainable for your business operation. So, but then it all comes down to what are those goals that are achievable? And then what tactics work to inform those goals or check on those goals. That's what EOS helps you to do on a consistent basis. And how do we do it? So next slide, Dana, please. So I am a big believer, and we push this on with many of our clients, that complete team transparency and buy-in. Now, when I mean team, I don't mean every single person on your team, but I mean, the key people that are driving the organization, especially driving, the top line growth, need to understand the financials. They need to understand the metrics of where this business is going. And they will support you on these goals. So we help to sort of illuminate what that looks like. And if you don't want everyone to be in, the bottom line P&L, you just bring out the metrics. You bring out what the goals are, monthly and weekly. So, a lot of things that teams, small businesses fail to do, or they do it retroactively, is tying compensation plans to metric growth and improve metrics really, really helps. It brings strong team collaboration together, and it helps. It helps your overall business grow and scale. Also, outside of the box strategies. So, one person can't drive all the strategies of business. That's why we have businesses. We have smart people that help us all collectively come up with the strategies for new revenue lines or different types of efficiencies. That is so important in your business. And as CFOs, as strategic CFOs, we will frequently say to people, you need your team members to contribute to this. Otherwise, we won't have the correct financial goal. We won't hit our goals. And we'll push that, but we're not going to monitor that because that's not our role. But we'll push it. And then one of the other things is, you have to, one of the big keys is the operational tie-in. A lot of firms, we'll throw some financial numbers out there. We'll say, let's do 30% growth on your business. And the owners will say, yep, we're going to do 30. But if you don't look at all of those operational tie-ins that can make that happen to get you to that 30% growth, it's erroneous because you just might not hit it. And you need to track those type of things. So those are the items that in our due diligence and in our continuing engagement with clients, we're always looking at, but we're not managing. The clients have to manage it. And that's the beauty of AOS. What AOS does is it brings that management together for our clients that we work with. So let me go to the next slide, Dana. So I want to get down to a little bit of nitty gritty just so everybody understands some of this financial metrics stuff. Let me pause for a second. Any questions on what I've said so far for anybody on here? Any thoughts, questions? Just want to give 1 second here. I don't see any on the chat, so I think we're good to go. I'll keep going here. So here's, as I spoke of earlier in my initial slides there, these are some annual objectives that help you increase those areas. Increase your credit line from 250 to 500. Well, how do you do that as a business owner? Business owners will ask us, how do I do that? Well, what do banks look at? They look at cash flow. And what are they going to look at with cash flow? They're going to look at your EBITDA. They're going to look at your earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, amortization. So you have to improve that trailing 12 EBITDA. So we'll put a goal. Let's say your EBITDA is 65,000. Let's make it 150 because we want to improve our credit line, which in turn improves our working capital. That's how these metrics tie all together. Second, we want to increase our cash flow. So what's one way to increase our cash flow? One way is AR days. Let me quickly explain that. AR days. It's the amount of time it takes you to collect your cash from your customers. It's really the cash conversion from your customers. So let's say you're at 50 days, you want to bring it down to 40 as a goal. Top line revenue increase. Let's say you can do 15% increase. What does that equate to? Well, let's say it's 3 new sales a month, which is 10K per sale, 30K in sales a month. That'll get you 15% increase. Okay. And then how do we increase our gross margin? Well, let's say if you want to look for a 3% increase in gross margin. So maybe there's a way to increase your direct labor utility. I put 3%, it might be 5 to equate that, but I just threw that number in there. That's one way to do it. Increase your efficiency of your team. And then how do we get to 1.5 months of cash reserve versus 1? These are all important metrics that you can pull together. And we will, these are some high level metrics that we will usually look at for a lot of businesses. So any questions or thoughts from anyone here or anyone on the webinar right now? So let me go to the next slide and give you some examples of this before we tag into EOS. So this is a monthly example, but what I did here is I annualized it so that you could see the effect in what those changes would be. See how the starting month is July. So if you're at 50 AR days, look at what happens in October. If you move to 40 for the year, that's effective for the year, you could see how your increase in cash flow is 35%. But look what happened. You didn't get an increase in your debt service coverage, meaning you didn't hit the covenant a bank would look at to increase your line. They're probably not going to do that. And you're actually missing your current line covenant along with your other debt you might have. That's a problem. That's going to limit your availability of working capital into the future. So while it helps your reserves and helps your cash, it doesn't help you with growth capital. So then look at 3 new monthly sales. You can see how I put it at 120 or 120, which is 10 a month. But if you did 360, it almost hits all your goals. That's why top line growth is so critical sometimes. You hit your DCR, you hit your top line revenue growth 15 or greater, you got 18%. You almost got to 1.5 in monthly cash reserves, and you almost hit your 30% goal of increasing cash flow by just increasing your top line. Now that's a big top line growth. But then there's another factor is your direct labor. See that in August, 73%. So that helped with your DCR because your EBITDA grew so high with that. It's such a operational improvement. So you got work. You can get more working capital, even though the other items didn't improve where you wanted them to be. And you can then continue to grow your top line and reorganize that working capital for more emphasis on sales. So there's a lot of things there to think about in tracking all these metrics. And the important part of this is that if you're not on this weekly or monthly, these goals become elusive for your team. And we can report on it, we can emphasize it, we could tell you, look, you got to hit this or I can't get you a bank loan. But if your team doesn't coalesce around it and you don't do it, it's a lost cause. That's the beauty of collaboration here. So let me just pause for a second here for any questions, but I think I wanted to clearly explain why it's so important, especially in this time of disruption, to monitor these things to get your business back to health and growth. So now let me transition this over. We'll hold for any questions here. It looks like we don't have any. So I'll transition this over to Maria.
Great. Thanks, Jeff. Well, and as you already said in the beginning of your presentation, part of the beauty about EOS, again, Entrepreneurial Operating System, is that it is so strong in holding everyone throughout the organization accountable on driving results. And the reason they can do that is because EOS doesn't look just at numbers, but we start with getting the leadership team focused on becoming fully aligned on where they want to take the business and how they're going to get there. So we get them to set long-term as well as short-term plans and goals. And then we help them build a structure that will drive the business forward, and also to get the right people in the right seats. But the important part about that combination is once they have the right people in the right seats, and because they as a leadership team are aligned with where they want to go and how they're going to get there, they can cascade that vision out throughout the organization so everyone understands what their contribution will be towards hitting those goals. And certainly numbers do help you know whether or not you're on track. So one of the key elements of the EOS process is the data component, where we talk about this company scorecard that I'm about to walk everyone through. So what's important about the scorecard is it helps them look at those measurables that are the most important, that are going to let them know whether or not they're moving in on track with their plans. So you can see here a list of various measurables. Some of them are financial based, some are sales based, some are marketing. Also, you have operations. But these are 5 to 15 key measurables that the leadership team knows that they can measure weekly, and will also give them a finger on the pulse of how the business is doing. So once we've identified the measurables, the next step is to then identify what is that weekly goal that we want to hit as a leadership team for the company for each of those measurables. So you can see it may be a dollar figure, it may be just a general number, it may be a percentage, but they decide collectively as a leadership team, what weekly numbers do we need to be hitting each week for these key measurables. And then we also make sure that we know who is accountable for attaining those numbers. And not just for attaining the numbers, but when we're off track on hitting these numbers, they're going to be the ones to help fix the issue, help fix the problem, and get ourselves back on track. So the other beauty about the scorecard is that we're not just looking 1 week at a time, but as you've been using the scorecard for a quarter, you will always have a rolling 13 weeks of data accessible to you. So you can make very objective decisions based on real hard facts instead of on gut feel or those emotions. And just a couple of examples to show you how not only does the scorecard help you monitor what you're achieving, but it can also help you with predicting the future and seeing where you need to work and maybe do some redirects, do some pivoting to get things back on track. But let's just take a look down by where Claire is in the accounts receivable over 60 days. The target there was to have 10% or less in accounts receivable over 60 days. And as you can see, there's a couple of weeks in October where they were well over that. And if you then go up to the cash balance in the following 2 weeks, you can see that there's a correlation between being off track in your accounts receivable collections and also the impact that has on cash balance. Another correlation that you can see here that helps teams predict is that we were under the number of closed business deals that we wanted to have in the end of September and also October. Well, that then had a correlation with a negative impact on our weekly revenue. Because without deals closed, you're not able to deliver as promised on the weekly revenue. So the scorecard is great for holding everybody accountable to know what numbers they're supposed to be hitting and tracking whether that's happening or not, but it also can help you not only predict impact where there's some correlation, like I just explained, but also sometimes there's some seasonalization in your business. And if you understand that more factually, then you can be better prepared to make sure that you're doing some other steps to help you get through that seasonalized time. So again, really great for monitoring, but also to predict. So I don't know if there's any questions here, Jeff, before we go into talking about what do we do when we see that some of these scorecard numbers are off track. And that's going to be explained by Eric in the next slide when he talks about the weekly meeting that we get our clients to have to make sure that they're not just keeping the scorecard, but they're using it to their benefit to fix things.
Sure, Maria. Let me. I don't see any questions yet, so I'm waiting on that. But I think this is a great point, and one of your excellent things there was seasonality. I think one of those, tracking your metrics and understanding your seasonality versus your normal period, and also in having a cash reserve to get through some of those down seasonality periods is something that's really important that should be tied into your plan some of our earlier discussions. So great point there. I don't see any questions yet as I was waiting for some of those, so we can continue. Eric, please.
Okay, so take a step back and think for a minute what goes on in your regularly scheduled meetings. One of the most powerful tools we have in our toolbox is what we call a level 10 meeting, a meeting pulse. It happens on the same day, at the same time, with the same agenda. It starts on time and it ends on time, and it is highly structured. As you can see from this slide, we begin our meeting with good news. What we're segueing into is working on the business, getting away from working in the business, removing you from all of the day-to-day immediate decisions that you have to make, returning the emails, the phone calls that are building up on your inbox. We then move to what we call the reporting phase, where we're going to strictly report on the numbers that on the scorecard, the rocks, customer and employee headlines. And the way we do it is very simple. We don't discuss it, we just report. So as the scorecard that Maria just showed you, we would read each one of the line items and ask the question, is it on track or off track? Cash balance, on track or off track? AR, on track or off track? And the items that you saw in red would be considered off track. And then what we would do is drop it down to the issues list. The issues list is where we really solve the challenges that are going on in our business rather than just talking about them. And when I'm done here, Maria will get into the way we do that. So now we've reviewed the scorecard, each item. Good ones we've set on track, ones that are off track we've dropped down to the issues list. We then move to a quick ROC review. ROCs are simply 90-day priorities that the leadership team has set and that one individual is accountable for. And there's that word again. You'll hear us use it all the time, accountability. The same process. Is it on track or off track? If it's on track, we move on. If it's off track, we drop it to the issues list. Same thing with customer and employee headlines. Is there any information we need to share with the leadership team, good or bad, about a specific customer situation or an employee? If it's a major issue and it needs to be addressed, we drop it down to the issues list. Otherwise, we just share it. So if you take a step back and you think about what we just went through, I will wager that a majority of the meetings that your company is holding and what you do, and I learned this after 15 years of coaching CEOs and sitting in hundreds of meetings, is you spend your time reporting in those meetings, not solving issues. We only spend 15 minutes of a 90-minute meeting reporting. We then move to the to-do list. The to-do list is where we show accountability and whether you're getting things done. From the last week's meeting, there was a list of things that each person committed to do. All we do now is check in on that for 5 minutes. It was your to-do to done. Again, accountability. Each one of those to-do is assigned to an individual. In some situations when it's not done, it will drop down to the issues list. And now you have put together a list of the issues that are most important for the company to discuss, for the leadership team to really dig in and solve. We have a special tool called IDS that Maria will go through next. After we've spent 60 minutes, the majority of our time together, solving issues, not reporting, solving issues, we move to conclude. When we conclude, we're going to rate the meeting. The goal is for the meeting to be rated a 10. If you're not rating the meeting a 10, you need to share what needs to be improved. We're always trying to get better and solve problems. After we do that, we're going to review the to-dos. Does everybody agree with the way the to-do is written and what they're going to accomplish this week? And last but not least, we're going to discuss, are there any cascading messages? Is there anything that occurred in this meeting that we really need to share with other people in the company? Keeping everybody in the loop. This is a weekly meeting, 90 minutes, starts on time, ends on time, with the same agenda. Creates traction and accountability within your leadership team. I'm now going to ask Maria to really dive into the 60 minutes of what we do in a level 10 meeting.
Great. Let me jump in here and just hold for questions for 1 second. So while we're holding, I want to bring up something really important that Eric just went through. So it's about accountability. So one of the things that small business owners can't afford is they can't afford to not have value, one, with their support teams like YOCFO or their EOS implementer. They need value, and they need to create value in their organization so that they continue to grow in all the ways we've talked about creating that value. So that accountability piece is so critical. Eric is not giving a 5-page document and saying, here's what you need to do. Eric is saying every week and every month, we're going to make sure you do this and going to hold you to that. And YOCFO, if the team is responding to that and the financial numbers are ticking up, we can then start to plan and adjust the financial strategy and move the company forward. So I just want to make that point that is so critical these days for businesses to implement. Go ahead. Sorry.
If I could just add one thing too, it's so interesting. I'm sure Eric finds this with his clients as well. But we introduced this meeting at the very first session that we have with our new clients, and I can say unequivocally, every time I present that they're going to have a weekly meeting, I always get this, oh no, not another meeting. And I always say, trust the process, have this meeting, spend these 90 minutes every week to work on your business. And you will find that some of those other meetings you're having today won't be necessary because of the way that this meeting is structured and the way that you're going to have open, honest discussions to solve the issues, which I'll talk about the procedure to do that in a moment. But I've had clients send me endorsements about how beneficial these weekly meetings are to helping them become more proactive and predictive instead of being so reactive that they've been in the past.
Eric, we have one question. I'm sorry. Go ahead, answer that, and then we have a question. Go ahead.
That's a great point, Maria. I always, in focus day, when I bring up the meeting post and I get that, I always say to them, our goal is to have you run a meeting that people are running to rather than running from. And I'm going to buy everybody dinner if after you start implementing this, you don't see a huge change in how people react and look forward to meetings. I haven't bought dinner yet, by the way.
Nice.
Go ahead, Jeff. What's the question?
The question is someone's just sort of a general question about your L10, your level 10. Is that a rating scale or is it just a style of a meeting?
No, it's a rating scale. At the end of each meeting, each person who participates in the meeting has to rate not just the meeting, but the work that we did today as a leadership team. It's not one person's meeting. It's our leadership team's meeting. Okay. And make certain that they want to run to the meeting rather than run from the meeting. They have to feel they're getting great value.
So again, it reaffirms the value and the accountability piece.
Yep.
Okay. Good.
Well, and also how well they're working together, Jeff. if they're having those open, honest, candid conversations. And also if they're respecting each other's time. We always, and sorry for you were planning to say this, Eric, but we always make sure that we emphasize that they need to get there early so they can start on time. We remind them of Vince Lombardi's arriving early is on time, arriving on time is late.
Nice.
So start on time, end on time.
I always love football analogies. I'm in.
It's great.
Go ahead.
So are you ready for the issue solving track?
Ready.
Oh, okay, great. So this is fun to talk about too, because how many times have we walked into a meeting and thought we had a great discussion and left and thought, wow, wait a minute, I still don't know what we're doing about that issue. So with the IDS method, you will no longer be questioning what you decided, because we won't stop talking about an issue until we've solved it. And the way we do that is through IDS. And so the I stands for identify. And what we're doing when we're identifying the issue is we're really drilling into that issue to say, okay, so at a high level, we understand that that's the issue, but what's at the core of that issue? So I'm going to give you an example in a moment, so I won't drill too much into that, but I'm going to share with you how we really drill in to find out what is the root cause of that issue. Because once we know what is really the core of that issue, now we can talk about opportunities to solve it. So that's what the D stands for, is discuss. Discuss various options that could fix that root cause of the problem. So what are various solutions? Everybody has a chance to share their ideas from experience. Hopefully no hypotheticals, but from experience. And also we discourage politicking. If you've shared an idea once, don't keep pounding it into the discussion because you want your idea to win. Everybody heard you, but have a chance for everybody to go around the table and say, here's what I think we could do to really fix this and solve it once and for all. And then the team collectively says, okay, we've decided this is of those ideas that you shared, this is the right one that's going to solve it. So that's the S. It's the solve. So we agree on what the solution for that root cause of the issue is, who is going to own it, and when they're going to get it done by. So that solution, that action actually becomes a to-do for next week's level 10 meeting. So when Eric was explaining how you go through the to-dos to see if they were done or not, it's looking back and saying, okay, when we solved those issues, did that actually get fixed? And the discuss here is circled so many times because, as I mentioned at the beginning of this slide, so many times teams have great discussions and they leave without any kind of a solution and scratch their heads and wonder why it comes back the second, third, maybe even 10th, 11th time into a meeting. With IDS, you don't have that happen. And the way that we solve the issues, as you can see the issues list on the right here, we don't just go sequentially through the list. We actually prioritize it. And so whoever's facilitating that level 10 meeting says, all right, what are the top 3 issues we need to solve today? So they identify the 3, and then they start with the first one. And the first one here is weekly revenue. So now let's identify what's the root cause of the weekly revenue. Is weekly revenue off because we're not getting enough sales? Is it off because maybe operations didn't finish whatever product or whatever service they were supposed to deliver on time, so we couldn't bill it, so we couldn't pull that revenue in? Maybe we had a defect in something that was shipped out, and so the client returned it, so we couldn't count that for revenue or whatever. So what's at the root cause of the weekly revenue? And so the team finally decides that the root cause of the weekly revenue issue is the fact we're not getting enough sales. So now we're going to discuss, how do we improve sales? How do we get sales back up? Everybody has a chance to share that their ideas on the discussion for this weekly revenue issue. And Dana, I think that we are doing some animation there. Go to the discuss, please. And now we've agreed that so different ideas are, is it, okay, weekly sales are off. So is our sales rep a good sales rep? Do we think we've got the right sales rep, or do we think that he or she is calling on the wrong target market? Or are there some other issues? Well, we've decided that maybe it's the fact that we don't have the target market identified well enough. So our solve now is that we're going to really work hard, between sales and marketing to make sure that we really get a crystal clear picture of our target market. So he or she is calling on the right people in the right kind of accounts and improving their potential to close some deals. So now we've solved that issue. Issue number 1, that solve became a to-do for next week. Now we go to issue number 2, website rock off track. Again, we go through the identify the root cause of that issue. We discuss options. We solve it. Go to number 3. And when number 3 is solved, then if we still have time, we go to the next 3 issues. But that's the issue solving track. And it really makes a big difference in clients and leadership teams being able to get obstacles and barriers out of their way that could be impacting their achievement of their vision.
So what I'd like to do now is just walk you through the total EOS model. So far, we've talked very briefly about issues, which you see in the bottom left-hand corner, data, which is the scorecard as part of that, and the traction, where we introduced the level 10 meeting and the meeting pulse that's going to happen at the same time every week. But it all starts with your vision. The vision is what sets everybody's priorities and makes everybody understand where the company's going and how we're going to get there. The tool that we use to get that done is actually called the Vision Traction Organizer. And we're going to set a 10-year target during that vision discussion. We're then going to move down and create a 3-year picture. In 3 short years, what is the company going to look like? We then boil that down to actionable steps with a 1-year plan. When we're doing that 1-year plan, we're going to smoke out issues that are holding us back from accomplishing that plan. We're going to set 90-day priorities, which are the rocks that we talked about. We're going to transition into living in a 90-day world. It's been proven that the human mind focuses well in 90-day chunks. We're going to take advantage of that by setting 90-day priorities. And then we're going to boil it all down to weekly data, that being the scorecard that we went through before. That weekly data is going to allow you to take immediate actions inside your business for items that are holding you back from hitting your 1-year plan, which will feed into your 3-year picture. It does not allow things to sit and not be addressed. Solving issues is the number one thing that's going to help you move your business forward rather than continually talk about the same things over and over again. Real, simple results. No theory. It's all just like we showed with IDS and the meeting pulse. Traction inside your business to get things accomplished and move things forward. All implementable tools.
Eric, that's awesome. So let me hold for some questions here. I think we're close to the end of the slides here, and I want to bring up a couple examples here real fast of how we work together with EOS as a YOCFO, and then specifically, hopefully this will turn up some questions for you. And before we end, Danny, you can go to the next slide and show our information so people could take that down. So before we end, I'm sure Eric and Maria, and of course myself, we're happy to answer questions via email outside of this forum about your business and where you're headed and what you're trying to do, your vision, and how that ties into your financial planning and all of that. We're here for that. I just want to bring up 2 quick examples so people kind of understand. One's a manufacturing company and one is a marketing company. They both use EOS and they're both our clients. One, the manufacturing company says, I want to stay relevant in a diminishing market, which is their space. It's diminishing. They want to stay relevant and one of the leaders. How do they do that? They have to consistently reinvent themselves, and they have to buy the newest equipment and be extremely efficient in what they're doing and expand their market reach. So they're buying a lot of equipment year over year. So that's a big capital expenditure. So what EOS is doing is saying, what is your plan? What's your 3-year goal? How do we then disseminate that down into metrics for the team to do and what it looks like? And then what that spend is. And then we'll come in and we'll go, well, if you're going to spend $500,000 on CapEx, What is your return on assets that you expect on that? 12%, 15%? What's relative to the industry? Where are you going to be in 2, 3, 4 years with that equipment? What does that do for your enterprise value of your business if you want to sell in 6 years? Those are the questions we're digging into with them that align with that 3-year strategic goal that EOS does. Another example is a marketing company. They need to drastically diversify their revenues. How do they do it? They do it by embedding themselves deeper with clients and doing a lot more of that revenue with those clients, or sort of upselling with those clients. That's part of their goal while they do new business. So then we said, well, you should formulate a compensation plan for those people that rewards them on new business and rewards them on resale, upsell business in the current clients, because that's part of your strategy. They loved it. So we formulated that. Those are examples of the beauty of the coming together of the strategies of finance and EOS. So it's really powerful, guys. And I hope that everybody is clear on that and really takes hold of their business and jumps and looks forward. So that's it.
Jeff, let me add
please.
one thing here is both Maria and I are happy to give you 90 minutes of our time. We come in, we walk you through the EOS model. We leave you with tools that you can implement day one in your business. It's no selling. We kiss you on the forehead and say, if you need us, call us. We explain the whole process and give you tools you can implement immediately, and leave you with a hard copy of Traction, the book that EOS is based on. So reach out to Jeff, and I'm sure he'd be happy to put you in touch with us.
Absolutely. And I also recommend Go Giver. That's our book that I started the company on. Great motivational book.
Love that book, Jeff.
You love that book, Maria? Thank you. It's so motivational, that book. So Maria, any closing comments, and we'll end today. I don't see any more questions. I've been waiting for them. So I think we got our point across with most people. So
I think so. And I think, regardless of whether anyone reaches out to Eric and I for the 90-minute meeting, which hopefully they would, because I think that regardless of whether they go forward with EOS or not, they would learn some additional tools in that 90 minutes. If you use some of these best practices, whether or not you implement EOS, I know that they can help you as well. But certainly we've had some great success with EOS, and the combination, as you mentioned, Jeff, between what your organization does and what EOS can do with the help of Eric and myself, it just can take companies really much further ahead and help them stay on track through these difficult times, especially. We don't know what the rest of the year is going to hold, but companies that have been staying true to the EOS process that have been running on it are getting through this rather well. It's just helping them recognize areas that they need to redirect and work on those redirect plans, some of which you explained just a moment ago.
Awesome. And we're happy to send these. We'll send these out to the people who registered. We'll send out our slides. It's been great. Thanks, Maria. Thanks, Eric, for joining me today. This is awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Jeff.